what's going on with Bob Iger's situation over at the Walt Disney Company and exactly why he's now being investigated by the FCC.
And Disney decided to hire the most insufferable girl boss narcissist that exists on Earth.
They are now officially moving forward to investigate Disney CEO Bob Iger specifically.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior.
It started with a letter, one that landed on Bob Iger's mahogany desk like a live wire. On March 28, 2025, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr announced a formal investigation into Disney and ABC, questioning whether the company's lauded diversity benchmarks, once marketed as proof of Disney's moral leadership, had crossed the federal line into discriminatory hiring.
Look at this acting.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Investors blinked, fearing license challenges. Reporters swarmed Burbank, sniffing Watergate-level scandal. And inside Team Disney headquarters, executives whispered that the timing could not have been worse, because while regulators circled, Disney's supposedly can't-miss live-action remake of Snow White was, behind closed doors, hemorrhaging both money and goodwill.
I'd say that this is one of Disney's biggest regrets ever. Checked Rotten Tomatoes, and the score is even lower.
A production fire at Pinewood, 3 strike delays, and endless rewrites had swollen the budget past an eye-watering $270 million, far more than even the publicly optimistic spreadsheets admitted. Meanwhile, hashtags like Not My Snow White, Charsh Woke White, and Fire Bob Iger boiled across social media feeds, fueled by star Rachel Zegler's gift for incendiary sound bites. Disney promised audiences a modern fairy tale, familiar magic updated for a new millennium.
She is just uniquely unlikable, but then it is actually a terrible film as well, so it's the double whammy.
Instead, the studio found itself trapped in a real-life melodrama where every fresh plot twist looked worse than the one before. And that's where our story begins. A tale of ballooning budgets, culture war crossfire, and a CEO who suddenly appears to have lost his legendary golden touch. Federal probes are nothing new in corporate America, but an open FCC investigation into the House of Mouse is headline gold. Carr's letter cited potential violations of equal employment statutes buried inside Disney ABC's Reimagine Tomorrow targets, benchmarks that required half of on-air talent and creatives to hail from historically underrepresented groups. Conservatives claimed vindication. Progressive journalists cried partisan optics. More chilling than the rhetoric was Carr's pointed reminder that the FCC can challenge or even revoke broadcast licenses, a nuclear option that would place ABC's very right to stay on the air in jeopardy. Inside Disney, the crisis management playbook flipped to DEFCON 2. One midnight memo urged calm, stating, "Our values remain unchanged." Another memo, addressed only to Tier 1 readers, outlined contingency plans for station divestitures should the probe drag into 2026. Veteran board members flashed back to the 1996 Capital Cities acquisition. Younger VPs mouthed, "No way," in the corridors. The most visible tell, however, came in broad daylight. Within 48 hours of Carr's letter, Disney's widely promoted DEI landing pages vanished from the corporate site. Gone were the splashy stats about 50% diverse leadership by 2026. Gone, too, was the video montage showing Imagineers reimagining Tomorrowland through inclusive lenses. Analysts noticed. So did employees logging onto the intranet. One cynical engineer slacked, "So much for the future is diverse." Meanwhile, activist shareholders fired off petitions demanding Disney fight anti-inclusion McCarthyism. The tension was palpable. But as you'll see, this regulatory storm wasn't the only tempest crashing down on Bob Iger's carefully tended legacy. The FCC fuse lit a powder keg that had been smoldering since February, when corporate watchers first spotted subtle cracks in Disney's equality armor. Regulatory filings that once trumpeted Reimagine Tomorrow were scrubbed clean. Internal dashboards that tracked percent diverse hires suddenly returned blank fields. In town hall Q&As, executives chalked it up to streamlining metrics. Many employees weren't buying it. Members of Disney's Black employee resource group circulated a scathing open letter contending the rollback was a retreat dressed up as realignment. Long-tenured Imagineers, storytellers tasked with filtering classic attractions through a modern lens started walking. One 27-year veteran resigned over what she called gutting the moral compass of the company, later telling Variety, "We fought to make Jungle Cruise culturally responsible, only to watch corporate backpedal the moment a politician rattled a saber." Tension exploded in closed-door Zoom rooms. Managers were peppered with questions. Would upcoming promotions quietly unprioritize diverse finalists? Could Disney's license renewals be endangered if they kept their DEI? Promises no one supplied comforting answers. Morale dipped, and internal polls showed faith in senior leadership at a 5-year low. Yet this ideological storm, brewing largely in spreadsheets and HR panels, paled next to the circus unfolding on the Snow White set a continent away. Because where regulatory intrigue erodes from the top down, creative chaos tends to detonate from the bottom up, loud, messy, and spectacular. When Disney greenlit Snow White back in 2016, it looked like the safest bet imaginable. Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast had minted billions. Why not start at the studio's primal wellspring? Shooting schedules targeted 2021, but COVID punched the calendar in the face. Then came Hollywood's twin strikes. And just when the slate seemed stable, a lunchtime spark ignited a Pinewood soundstage. 2 fiberglass turrets intended for Snow White's castle burned, coating the rafters in acrid soot and pushing production another 7 months. Insurance paid for the rebuild. What insurance couldn't cover was the domino effect. Each delay realigned actor contracts, forcing Disney to pay holding fees. VFX houses already buried in post-pandemic backlogs charged premium overtime. At one point, concept artists were paid to design 3 mutually exclusive new looks for Snow White's magical forest, because no one could decide which version would survive the next rewrite. By late 2024, spreadsheets showed a net spend of $270 million, with contingency funds nearly tapped. Crew members joked the set had become the MC Escher of budgets, stairs leading everywhere except completion. But spreadsheets alone can't convey the human toll. Marathon night shoots to capture fleeting actor availabilities, 30-page rewrite packets delivered 2 hours before call time, exhausted union labor clocking triple overtime to repaint, background flats that might never reach theaters. And all that was before the meltdown that turned Snow White from a runaway cost center into front-page scandal fodder. Rachel Zegler had been the breakout of Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Earnest, big-voiced, polished for TikTok virality. Disney saw millennial lightning in a bottle. Zegler saw a platform and used it. On the D23 red carpet, she quipped, "This Snow White isn't about true love's kiss. She's not dreaming of a guy she met once." The clip hit Twitter like napalm. Overnight, You're Not My Snow White and Her Snow Woke racked up 10 million views. Still, Disney's PR gurus assured worried suits that controversy equals engagement. Then came the infamous soundstage incident. Multiple insiders, each under NDA, tell eerily similar tales. Zegler disputing a brand new monologue about personal agency, a tense back and forth with an exhausted director, and a prop throne flung harder than anyone present thought possible. The throne cracked a foamstone arch. The arch toppled into a bank of LED panels. 6 shooting days vanished. Set carpenters rebuilt from scratch. Disney never confirmed the story. They didn't have to. Drone photos leaked of the debris haul, UK tabloids paid handsomely for blurry stills, security doubled, and Zegler's public-facing account suddenly funneled through a PR minder. Her pre-scheduled posts promoting progressive policies ceased. What emerged were neutral affirmations like, "So proud of our hardworking crew," the social media equivalent of beige paint. Meanwhile, co-star Gal Gadot, one of Hollywood's most politically divisive figures due to her Israel Defense Force background, delicately avoided junkets where Gaza questions might collide with Zegler's Free Palestine tweets. Disney wound up scheduling 2 separate European press tours to keep the actresses apart. What should have been glossy synergy devolved into choreographed avoidance, and all the while, a line item labeled Contingency Meltdown Balloon in accounting software. Hollywood reshoots are routine. A week here, 2 weeks there. Snow White eclipsed routine by a mile. After that first disastrous screening, audiences called the dwarfs uncanny CG homunculi, Iger himself ordered new passes on the script, demanding classic Disney warmth. Head of production, Sean Bailey flew to London with fresh pages, only to learn the forest set was retextured for Act 2's gritty tone shift. Enter Peter Dinklage. The Emmy-winning actor torched the project on Mark Maron's podcast, calling the dwarfs regressive. Disney paused marketing, announced mythic companions, and paid Weta Digital to sculpt 7 elf-adjacent heroes again. Each redesign cascaded new motion capture, new compositing passes, new ADR loops in California, VFX calendars slipped, external vendors tacked rush fees for 4K exports. Even the score suffered. Original composer Benj Pasek delivered 110 minutes of orchestral themes, but late story shifts rendered half his cues obsolete. Disney paid him and his replacement, multi-Oscar winner Alexandre Desplat, whose lush waltz motif now sits in a vault marked Unused Tracks Final 5. Wavdor's rumor puts the combined music bill north of $24 million. Every studio spreadsheet has a red line, and Snow White strutted across it, racking up costs like a gambler refusing to fold. The only remaining hope was that opening weekend crowds would buy tickets for the spectacle alone. Premiere week, March 2025. Disney canceled the usual Hollywood Boulevard tent gala, replacing it with a modest photo call inside the El Capitan. No movie screened, just a 30-minute sizzle reel. Analysts sniffed blood. Thursday previews limped in at $4.7 million lower than Mulan during pandemic restrictions. Opening weekend closed at $43 million domestic, $87 million worldwide. Roughly a quarter of live-action Beauty and the Beast's debut. Deadline's headline read, Fairest Face Plant. Variety noted Snow White needed $650 million to break even after marketing. Word of mouth wasn't kind. CinemaScore clocked a B. Exit polls highlighted muddy tone and awkward pacing. On TikTok, Gen Z critics posted montage cuts of Zegler dissing the prince alongside clips of her hugging Godot on set, scoring millions of ironic likes. Disney's lucrative merchandise pipeline sputtered. Target executives slashed the end cap space for Snow White dolls. Hasbro let it slip that early action figure orders were anemic. The algorithmic era adds insult to injury. When box office misses, e-commerce algorithms downrank tie-ins, self-reinforcing doom. Bob Iger once boasted a Midas touch: Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Disney+. But at the April earnings call, his trademark serenity cracked. He acknowledged strategic headwinds and admitted the remake slate was under granular review. He pledged course correction, yet analysts sensed the word admission vibrating beneath every sentence. Internally, managers circulated what employees dubbed the glass slipper memo, a sobering breakdown of risk if any future remake, like the planned Tangled, stumbled similarly. Simultaneously, lobbyists briefed the board on the FCC probe's worst case. If Carr pushes hard and a conservative majority agrees, ABC affiliates in swing states could face license hearings right as presidential campaigns blanket airwaves. A spin-off re-entered conversation. Iger hates selling crown jewels, but hates regulatory uncertain revenue streams more. Morale mirrored Wall Street jittery. An internal survey leaked to CNBC showed only 38% of employees believed senior leadership is effectively navigating current crises, down from 74% 3 years prior. Recruiting flagged, top animators fielded overtures from Prime Video Animation for safer creative ground. The magic aura around Disney leadership, once near mythic, was fading under fluorescent realities. Competitor studios felt mixed schadenfreude and terror. Universal's Wicked team privately celebrated a reprieve from remake fatigue comparisons, but also doubled contingency budgets. Warner Brothers ordered a cold-eyed risk audit of its planned Sleeping Beauty script. One insider leaked a bold note, Snow White toxicity is real. All fairy tale IP now flagged yellow. Netflix smelled opportunity. A white paper titled Original Myth Legacy IP cited focus group surges in appetite for fresh fantasy worlds after Disney fatigue. Amazon Prime fast-tracked a high-budget adaptation of the Green Knight author's other medieval poetry. Hoping adults hungry for myth but weary of Disney's sugar gloss might tune in? Analysts warn Disney may slash next year's theatrical slate to protect cash, leaving Disney Plus with leaner exclusive drops. Streaming subs plateaued last quarter. If theatrical output stumbles, churn could spike, all while the FCC's preliminary findings loom. Penalties could range from consent decrees, mandatory compliance monitors, to the unimaginable license renewal battles in court. Bob Iger's legacy once sparkled like Cinderella's slipper. Today, it looks more like a glass-ticking clock. Bob Iger guided Disney through seismic leaps, acquiring Pixar when animation felt stale, betting on superheroes when capes were a niche, launching Disney Plus in the teeth of streaming giants. But every titan meets a storm. Iger's is a two-headed beast, a federal investigation that questions Disney's moral narrative, and a $300 million remake that just flopped before the world's harshest box office jury. Is Snow White a one-off stumble or the canary? Warning that audiences have finally tired of live-action déjà vu? And if the FCC decides Disney's diversity drive was paradoxically illegal, could ABC's future fracture Disney's media empire? Disney has survived wars, recession, and lawsuits, but never a moment when its family-friendly Halo and its money-printing machine wobbled at once. The Magic Kingdom's next chapter is unwritten, and whether it reads triumph or tragedy could hinge on decisions made in the next few months, in boardrooms and federal hearing rooms alike. So keep your eyes on both screens, the silver one and C-SPAN's, and buckle up. Because in this story, the happily ever after is still up for grabs, and not even Disney can conjure pixie dust strong enough to rewrite reality.